Hello and welcome to the Battle Line Podcast, where we have conversations on that collision of space between community, faith, and culture. Welcome to episode 39, and I'm one of your hosts, Matt Satterley, and here with me is the National Director of Publications, my co-host on this podcast, my co-host in life, my forever Valentine, as they say, Major Jamie Satterley. Jamie, how are you doing today?
I was better before that.
Wow,
I'm doing great.
We also have with us on here our co-host and producer, the national media manager, the one who actually puts in the work, the grind, the hustle to make all of this run. Elizabeth. Elizabeth, how are you doing today?
I am so super swell. Love to grind.
Listen, a little while back, one of our early on episodes, probably almost a year ago now, we had Colonels Ken and Paula Johnson on to talk about the move process in the Salvation Army. And that was actually one of our most listened to podcasts. And so today we invited Colonel Johnson back to speak about something that you may know a little bit about, you may not have ever heard of at all. But he's going to talk with us about the Commissioners Conference. He'll go into a lot more detail, but this is basically how different decisions on things like program and policy are made through this process that we call the Commissioners Conference. So how are you, Colonel? We're so glad that you're here with us today.
Well, I'm doing well, and thank you for allowing me to come back again. Thank you for that plug about the Move podcast being so well attended. I'll be out front signing autographs if anybody would like to swing by.
I was going to say, hold on. Is Colonel Johnson the first repeat guest we've had on the show? I think so.
I think so.
And I don't even have Colonel Paula with me today. I'm all alone. She's my co-producer in life and all of that.
All right, Colonel. So here's the first question. People will hear the phrase Commissioners Conference and not know what that is. Maybe they'll assume it's like a commissioning or a Congress or something like that. So can you tell us really quick, what is it? What's the history? Who decided to start this crazy thing? What is Commissioners Conference?
Well, let me say, if they even hear the term Commissioners Conference, they need to get a life. It is a part of the governance of the Salvation Army that a lot of people don't know about. Not that it's not transparent or anything. It's just that a lot of people aren't aware of it, and a lot of times it is operating behind the scenes, making things happen for the Salvation Army, and people just benefit from the decisions and the actions that are taking place. Just to give you the 30,000-foot flyover, the Commissioners Conference is really the chief ecclesiastical and administrative body of the Salvation Army in the United States. It is one of the key components, if not the key component, of governance for the Salvation Army in the United States. It harkens back all the way to Evangeline Booth days. Back in October of 1920, a decision was made to establish the territories in the U.S. In those days, there were only three: the Western Territory, the Central Territory, and the Eastern Territory. There wasn't a Southern Territory in those days. As if you can tell, I'm from the South with the accent, and we came along a little later. But in October of 1920, the decision was made to establish these territories. And in so establishing those territories, a lot of the decision-making and the administrative decision-making for the Army in those geographic parts of the U.S. were then transferred from the office of the commander, she was called, Evangeline Booth, to the territorial commanders for those three territories. And yet, even as they made this transition, they realized that there was it was critically important that the Salvation Army in all quadrants of the U.S. make sure that they are ministering and upholding the flag and doing all that we do as the Salvation Army, making sure that we are doing it in a consistent and in a lockstep manner, so that there would never be a question of what we're doing, why we are doing it, and how we are doing it. So a decision was made to bring the territorial commanders together. Hey, let's bring them together around a table and Evangeline decided to do that. The very first gathering of these commissioners was on January the 3rd and 4th, 1921, when they came together. I've actually read the minutes of that commissioners conference, and it was rather fascinating. They talked about mission. They talked about how we can continue to reach out and propagate the gospel. There was discussion about opportunities for service. There was discussion about coordinating a visit of the general who was going to be coming to the United States. These were all issues that we wanted to make sure that all of the Army was aware of, and everybody was planning accordingly. And then there were exciting things like they actually had a debate as to the importance of machines. What do I mean by machines? A recommendation that had actually been presented to the commissioners that perhaps it was time for the Salvation Army to buy and own machines. We call them automobiles. But in those days, they sat around the table and the decision was made, yeah, we need to investigate this. So let's take a look at it. They also looked in 1921, that first time they all gathered, they looked at some of the fiscal policies and financial policies. There was discussion about what size grant should be extended to provide medical care for Army officers who were expectant and about to have a child, and they were deciding whether to increase that amount from $35 up to $50. Well, we know that inflation grabbed us by the throat. We know what it costs to have a baby today, and it's a lot more than $35.
For sure.
But the point being, in that very first meeting, they realized the importance of the Salvation Army across the nation working consistently with common approaches, common ideas, common policies relative to the expenditures of resources. And in so doing, there was never a question about the importance of the ministry that the Salvation Army provides, and we are organized and doing it to the best of our ability.
Very
Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
that same commissioners conference process still carries out today. We still talk about program. We still talk about possibilities. We still talk about fiscal policies and procedures. Originally, the commissioners, that first commissioners group met once a year. They realized that's not enough. They went to 2 times a year. Then after a while, it went to 3 times a year. And that's what we do today. The commissioners conference of 2022, we will meet 3 times during this year when all the commissioners come together and we talk about those things that are most pertinent to all territories in the U.S.
Very cool, Colonel. Thank you for giving us that overview. I think you did that perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know, just in my experience here at NHQ, and of course, back in my home territory, sitting under kind of the leadership and ministry of the territorial commander, we recognize that it is quite a heavy burden that group has, to make all these decisions. But the reality is they're not coming to these decisions all on their own, right? There are a lot of committees and task forces that are doing some of the, I guess, like the ground laying work, professionals that work all around the nation who sit on these task force and committees to help the Commissioners Conference make the most informed decision that they can. So can you talk a little bit about how many different committees and task forces are attached to the Commissioners Conference system?
Task forces or task force I, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's right.
I like Task Force I like that.
Task force I. You hit the salient point, Jamie, on the head when you were talking about getting people around the table that really are in the know about whatever the subject might be that is on the agenda. Perhaps it would be good to first start talking about who is it that's a member of the Commissioners Conference. And originally, the Commissioners Conference was only made up of the 5 commissioners. Well, in those days, it was 4, the 3 territories and the commander. And then when the Southern Territory came along, it became 5. It started with just the territorial commanders. And then a decision was made in 1954, I think it was, that the chief secretaries, the national chief secretary, and the four territorial chief secretaries would join, because the commissioners realized, perhaps we need consultation. And then a decision was made later on that all active commissioners serving in the U.S. and the active chief secretaries would comprise the membership of the Commissioners Conference. Again, all about getting people to the table that would have some information, some knowledge, and some expertise. But as you know, none of us have all the answers. And they say the wise leader surrounds himself with people who are in the know, people who know more than they do and rely upon that expertise. So the Commissioners Conference realized early on that whatever the subject might be, we needed people at the table who could give us sage wisdom. So the Commissioners Conference is made up, to answer your question, right now, of 54 different task force I, commissions, committees, and ultimately conferences. They're all in a tree, organizational tree. All of them given a specific responsibility on giving attention to the ministry in their area of expertise. Take, for example, the National Finance Commission. It is comprised of the 5 financial secretaries in the United States. Those are the ones that know most about what's going on in the financial world. Most of them are college trained on finance. And so they come together, they look at all of the financial issues that are facing the Salvation Army in the United States on any given day, and then they will make their recommendations. So it is truly a collaborative effort of the brain trust at all different levels, the brain trust of the Salvation Army, and in so doing, every one of them beginning their meetings in prayer, asking that the ultimate knowledge, the knowledge that the Lord can bring into our deliberations, will prevail on whatever decisions are being made.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Colonel. So let's walk us through the process here. Let's just say, all right, so Jamie and I have the privilege of sitting in the Youth Commission. So it's the territorial youth secretaries from the 4 territories. Canada gets to come and hang out with us in these meetings as well. So let's just say
we also have a divisional commander representative.
That's right.
The wonderful Poppy Thompson, who sits in and speaks from a divisional commander's point of view on things that would influence young people under their care.
So are y'all giving a shout out to the Youth Commission?
Shout out.
Yay!
Best commission. So let's say the Youth Commission, we all talk and we say, you know what? We need a discipleship program for babies. We need babies to be evangelizing to other babies. So, and we
could create a biblical mandate for this.
They have to do service projects.
Train them up.
The babies have to do service projects. So let's say we create a program. We recommend a program called Cradle Roll Cadets. All right. And we want to send that up to Commissioners Conference. So we all vote on it. We all say, yes, we're all for it in this hypothetical situation. And what happens to that recommendation after the Youth Commission says, can we do this?
I think probably the first step of that process, the recommendation would be transferred to the Trade Commission. It's made up of all of the trade secretaries who will determine what a uniform would look like. The baby cradle roll cadet program.
Epaulets on the diapers. Epaulets on the diapers.
We can just make fancy diaper covers. Just have it.
Well, let me explain to you the process. And it's going to sound convoluted. It's going to sound complex, but it really isn't. A germ seed idea gets formulated, perhaps led by the Lord and the Holy Spirit. Hey, this is an opportunity of ministry that the Salvation Army could fulfill, and that concept would be presented by whatever committee it would be to the Commissioners Conference body, the top body. What do you think? And then if this is something that we would like to pursue, then many times what will happen is the first task force a task force would be created to investigate a little bit further. What would be involved? Is this something that somebody's already doing that we could take advantage of? Learn from their prior experience, or is this something that we would be starting afresh? The Commissioners' Conference, just to back up just a little bit, the Commissioners' Conference is divided into three trees in the organizational structure. There is a personnel conference, there's a business conference, and then there's a program conference. Each one of them have their different committees and the task force that are attached to them, and any recommendations that is within their sphere of discipline, that recommendation would go up that tree line. So for this example, it sounds like it's a program concept, even though you could say the babies are personnel. This is more perhaps a program program concept. So this task force, if it was approved, it would be created. It would be populated by officers, soldiers, maybe some YPSMs from around the territory. Cradle roll sergeants would populate this committee. It'd be a hand select group of people. They would get together, they would begin to formulate ideas, and then recommendations would be sent up probably to the Youth Commission. Hey, Youth Commission, what do you think about this?
We're all for it.
Woohoo!
We love it.
After the Youth Commission looks at it, they would say, okay, that's really got merit. Let's send it up to the program conference. Let the program conference review it. Program conference says, yeah, I like that idea because I've got a grandkid who's a baby, and maybe my grandkid, because they're all oldsters. When you get to that level, they're oldsters. And I'm talking about myself. It would go up through the program conference, and they say, yeah, this is a wonderful idea, and then the recommendation would go back to the Commissioners' Conference. Now having been, when the Commissioners' Conference held originally, it was just in a concept form. Now it's been fleshed out. This is how many people would be involved. This is the program, what it would look like. This is what it would take relative to teacher training. The Child Protection and Vulnerable Adults Committee would perhaps look at it. How do we protect the children while they're going through this program? And then the whole ball of wax program is presented to the Commissioners' Conference. They look at it, they pray over it, they put a stamp of approval, and it goes right back out to the territory saying, go do it. Have fun in this new avenue of ministry. So it's fairly easy. Now, understand, for anything to pass the Commissioners' Conference, there are only 5 votes. 1 for national headquarters and 1 for each territory. 5 votes. All votes have the same weight. No one vote outweighs the other 2.
That's good to know. That's good to know, Colonel.
Yeah, so you got 5 votes, and for an idea like this to pass, it must carry a super majority, which means that 4 have to vote the same, and then whatever that is, because they may get which they do, they will get a proposal about something and say, no, we're not ready for that, or no, it's not ready yet. Give it a little bit more review and come back with answers to a couple of questions we might have. Those 4 yeses or those 4 nos would carry the day. And then it goes back to for this instance, it would go back to the program conference for implementation.
Yeah, so that's really interesting and really, I think, helps listeners understand when we're talking about, things that are on a national level that are passed through, how these things kind of come about, how many people really look at them and pray over them and are trying to make the best decisions for these things. Can you tell us a little bit, Colonel, like some of the things that listeners would recognize that have come through the Commissioners' Conference structure? Like, what's a success story?
Honestly, you call it a success story. We are convinced that every decision that the Commissioners' Conference makes, even though there may be questions about them, we feel they're all success stories, whether they are approved or not. But there are, because there are a lot of decisions that are made, that those decisions get implemented behind the scenes, and very few people even know it happens. Let's say hypothetically there's been a change in internal revenue law relative to the deductibility of contributions to the Salvation Army. The legal commission of the Commissioners Conference will review with the legal eagles and our outside counsel, render a recommendation. This is how the Army needs to respond to it. The Commissioners Conference approves it. It gets enacted. Nobody knows it. It just kind of carries on. But there are some that are a lot more obvious. We were just talking about the Trade Commission. We know that there was a recommendation that came up to the Commissioners Conference as the earth kind of settles quietly and says, it's now time to allow the ladies to wear slacks with their uniform.
Yeah. Woo!
And the Commissioners Conference reviewed it and said, you know what? We agree. And the approval is given by the Commissioners Conference for the slacks or any adjustment, whether it be the slacks issue or any adjustment to the uniform. It's going to flow through the Trade Commission, which then goes up through the business. That's part of the business conference of the Commissioners Conference, and then it's approved by the Commissioners Conference themselves. So, there are lots of examples like that. The implementation of the ministries of the Salvation Army and anti-human trafficking recommendation comes up. We need to do more about rescuing people from modern day slavery and trafficking. So the Commissioners Conference forms the National Anti-Human Trafficking Committee as a part of the Commissioners Conference process. And they bring to the table ideas and ways in which we can strengthen our ministry and serve to folks who are being trafficked on the street.
That's great stuff, Colonel. I mean, I think you're right. I appreciate you saying it, how there are three portions of Commissioners Conference: program, personnel, and business. And I think it's probably easier for our listeners to see things when they come through the program side of things. Now, again, Youth Commission is in the program portion. I'm not saying it's the best part of Commissioners Conference, but I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. So, but what Colonel's saying to us here, and I want everybody to hear that, is there are business decisions, there are personnel decisions that aren't seen probably to soldiers, to those who aren't running in those circles. But just because they don't see it doesn't mean that it's not moving. Doesn't mean that things aren't happening behind the scenes. For
right.
Sure.
Or there's all these things are affecting you in ways you just may not be aware of them. One of the things that you'll probably see or would recognize that came through this is if you think about the Corps Cadet program. When I was a Corps Cadet as a young person, it was the cross training, right? Corps Cadet cross training program. Then several years back, almost 10 years ago now, the decision was made to move away from cross training as the curriculum and into what we now call BOLD, right? Which BOLD stands for, listen,
Bible,
I just
our
draw like, yes, there you go. I was getting there, Matt. Slow your roll. I know it's your job. Bible, our heritage, leadership, and discipleship. And so that decision was made, and that happened through the Commissioners Conference. The Corps Cadet Committee did the work on that to prepare this, to come up with the scope and sequence, to put the materials, what they wanted the materials to look like together. That went up, like Colonel said, through Youth Commission and Program Conference and Commissioners Conference. And now that program is implemented all across the nation.
Yeah, can I interrupt for just a moment and
Sure.
say, and this kind of goes with what Matt was saying and you have illustrated with BOLD. We talk about the three different trees of the organizational chart of the Commissioners Conference, but they don't operate in a vacuum. And all of these groups are collaborating between each other. A recommendation is to, you mentioned, Jamie, the issue of statistics. Well, the program conference gets together and they look at, okay, what's the best way for us to identify our ministry outputs? They make recommendations on what that's going to look like. It comes up through the statistical committee. The program conference looks at it, but then wait a minute, we've got to have a computer system that will track that. So all of a sudden it crosses over into the business section, and the Information Technologies Committee of the Commissioners Conference reviews it and says, okay, here's the technology that will run a software package like that, and then it will flow up to the Finance Commission to say, okay, here's how we can pay for it. My point being, everybody, all the different disciplines and the intellect, I can't describe to you the intellect that is around all of these groups. They all come together with a common cause of addressing an opportunity or a need that the Army has. And the Lord blesses that, and out comes an answer to what we need for the Salvation Army today.
That's great, Colonel. Colonel, so you talked a little bit about this at the very beginning, but elaborate a little more to help us out here. How does the Commissioners' Conference structure all four U.S. territories sitting at the table, and not just Commissioners' Conference, but like you said, the legal secretaries, the program secretaries, the finance secretaries, the anti-human trafficking people that are working. How does it strengthen? How do them coming together? Oh, and national, of course, is in those as well to make the fifth. But how does that strengthen the four U.S. territories? How does it make us stronger together?
Well, there's there's the old adage that many hands make light work, and we have a lot of work within the Salvation Army and in the ministry of serving our Lord in this world. When we're all working collaboratively toward common goals and common aims, that inherently makes the ministries of the Salvation Army stronger. But one of the things that the Commissioners' Conference is very interested in ensuring is that we have no question about about mission vision as to what we are about, because you often hear about vision creep and mission creep, and by the four territories and national headquarters coming together, sitting around the table, it helps to keep our vision very clear and well focused as to what we are trying to do in our ministries. And then at the same time, it ensures that our mission standards are never compromised. That whatever the standards are for mission achievement, it's going to be the same in Key West, Florida, and it's also going to be the same in Honolulu, Hawaii, and everything in between. That we are all operating within the same standards to make sure that what what our aims and goals and mission is going to always be pursued, and these are the standards of achievement that make that happen. And then finally, the whole issue of all of us speaking the same voice, mission communication, is incredibly important. Let me give an example. Just last year, we did a national campaign for the Christmas season. It was called Rescue Christmas. Most people would be aware of it. And all four territories, it was kind of a unique thing. We've had messaging out there, but sometimes the territories would have that, but they would also have some local messaging. With the Rescue Christmas, all four territories, working with the Commissioners' Conference, embraced the concept, and it was the most successful mission campaign, mission messaging of the Salvation Army probably in our history.
Amazing.
And it was all because we were all speaking the same voice, and that creates strength within the mission of what we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, bringing everybody to the table, it's critical.
Yes, sir. Great stuff.
Yeah, I would also say for our listeners who are in youth ministry, the way that this really helps you out is in a program like Corps Cadets, because it's a national thing, because we're all working on the same standards, we're all following the same curriculums and same guidelines, that because it's a scholarship program, right? There's a scholarship component. If a young person moves from like Montana to Mississippi, they don't lose traction, or they don't lose their space within that program. We're all working from the same curriculum, and so that the young person doesn't miss out on those discipleship opportunities, those leadership opportunities, but also the scholarship opportunities because it is a national program, and so that helps. It's a very practical way that the Commissioners' Conference helps our soldiery, is by making sure that those standards are kept, across the board. It just makes it more beneficial for our young people. One of the things, Colonel, people might be questioning, specifically if they're soldiers and they've been involved in some of these other kind of committees on divisional and territorial levels, they may think that, this seems very similar to DSYNC, which is Soldiers, Ideas, Needs, and Concerns. It's a committee that many divisions do. Or TOAC, which is a territorial committee where officers, right, can express their needs and concerns. So can you explain what those structures are and how they differ from Commissioners Conference?
Colonel, can I interrupt here too before you answer? I think are those names congruent across all 4 U.S. territories? I don't know. Again, all of us on here are Southern Territory people, so that's what it's called in the South, DSYNC and TOAC. I imagine the other territories, if you're listening to this, you have either the same thing or it's called by a different name. Same thing, just called by a different name in your territory.
Both of your points are well taken. To answer Matt's point, there isn't complete consistency in how they're identified, but there are avenues whereby ideas can percolate up through the various avenues, whatever the subject might be, and so it's important. This is a soldier's army, and the soldiers need an opportunity to be able to speak into the mission of their church in which they worship. Jamie, your point is well taken as well, on a higher level, in that the Commissioners Conference deals with those things that are global and have an impact. Whatever the subject might be, it has an impact on all 4 territories. Or it is ensuring that we're making sure all 4 territories are in compliance with orders and regulations that perhaps come out of London that we have to make sure are implemented in each of the territories. But at the same time, as the Commissioners Conference is dealing with those high-level global issues, we would never want to supplant or ignore the latitude for the territories to be able to address location-specific issues that may be taking place in their territory. Perhaps the Lord has laid upon any given territorial commander's heart a theme, an initiative, a new idea for ministry within their territory, and it's territory specific. Obviously, we would want that territory to still have the latitude to be able to scheme and dream and strategize about new ways that they can reach out in their own local communities. So the opportunities are there for avenues of communication. That's all that DSYNC and TOAC are. For those of you that don't know, DSYNC is Divisional Soldiers, Ideas, Needs, and Concerns. That's the soldiers' avenue, where they have an idea, a need, or a concern that they would like to share with the leadership of the Salvation Army. And so through that DSYNC exercise, whatever it's called in that specific territory, they can share from their heart any God-given visions which they might have with the leadership of the division, and then it percolates up into the territories. For the officers, that's the soldiers' wing of it. For the officers' wing, you have TOAC, or Territorial Officers Advisory Council, and what they do is Territorial Officer Advisory Council, I think it is. They will bring to the leadership any ideas that the officers might have relative to the mission, ministry, and the operations of the various avenues of the Salvation Army. One of the wonderful benefits of the TOAC and the DSYNC process, whatever it's called in that territory, is that there are so many different ideas, opportunities for ministry, as well as perhaps things that need to be addressed. They will start at that ground level, an idea of a soldier or something on the heart of an officer, and it will be reviewed at the territorial, the divisional, and then ultimately the territorial level. And then perhaps the realization dawns on everyone that, this has national implications. And all of a sudden, a new concept is born that can be processed up through the Commissioners Conference for addressing. So it's this incredible wonderful governance and leadership and ministry process that we have in the Army, that everybody has a voice, and it can go all the way up to the commissioners' conference and their voice is heard. And it starts at that grassroots level.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a soldier or an officer listening to this and you have thoughts and ideas about, things that you would like to present to whatever your territorial's version of these are, then we would encourage you to do that. If you're a soldier, talk to your corps officer, ask about what kind of, again, in the South, we call it desync, what those opportunities are in your division. If you're an officer, you talk to DHQ and find out. In my experience, again, in the South, in our division, every corps had a representative that sat on those desync committee meetings so that every corps could speak into what was happening in their division. And then again, with TOAC, as an officer, every division has a representative who represents the officers in your division to territorial headquarters. So there's a lot of great opportunities for us to speak into these avenues of ministry and business and personnel. So we would just encourage you to take advantage of those opportunities.
Can I make a request of your listeners?
Certainly.
If there's any request that I would make of them, is that they would keep in their prayer list the members of the Commissioners' Conference. You must understand the volume of work that goes across their plate, and I'm talking about every commission. There are 50 plus of these commissions that are out there. The volume that crosses their plate is massive, but the implications are just as massive. And every member of the Commissioners' Conference, all the way up to the Commissioners' Conference group themselves, take their responsibility very seriously. And if people could just keep them in their prayers as they are making these monumental ministry decisions that impact the entire nation, it would go a long way.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Colonel. Yeah, that's your homework from the National Chief Secretary, is to go ahead and keep the Commissioners' Conference in your prayers, not just the 3 times a year that they meet, but all year round, especially just because there is so much. I mean, everybody knows right now, this world, you turn on the news and how do you make it another day? And that's what we try to do through the Lord, and what the Commissioners' Conference is trying to navigate with the Lord's help this culture through them. So thank you again for that, Colonel. The best communication from any organization comes from the ground up. And you've heard the National Chief there just say how that can be done and how that's happening and how the Army is on the move. So, Colonel, I know retirement's coming up for you pretty soon, but we will get you back on the show. We have to get the three-peat, the trilogy before you call. We'll find something else to talk about for sure.
Sounds
Absolutely.
great. I'll be glad to come back anytime.
So we're going to close up our episode with our question that we ask each episode. What is bringing you joy? What is bringing you joy? Colonel Johnson, this week, what is it for you? What's making you joyful this
Now,
week?
I think last time you said your grandkids. I'm going to tell. I don't know if you can say your grandkids again. That's a given.
Even though last week they all finished their school year, they all moving on to the next grade. Yeah, they're all the joy of my life, and we love being with the grandkids. As you mentioned, we're in the process of approaching retirement. I know I look entirely too young to be approaching retirement, but while I'm not ready to retire, and I probably will never retire, I enlisted for life, and I will continue to serve. Yeah, there's the excitement of we now are the proud owner of our retirement home. So we're in the process of getting it furnished, and Paul is holding up one swatch after another. Babe, what do you think about these for drapers?
They're all blue. How can there be 100 shades of blue? They're all blue.
Yeah, what do I care? You know the proper answer to that question. Another question, babe, what do you think? And that's the answer.
Matt, I'm going to need you to write that down.
But yeah, there's a lot of joys of life that, every day the ministry is just incredible what we have an opportunity to do. Just 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, I had the privilege of representing the Salvation Army on the hill at Washington for the National Day of Prayer. And to be able to join with fellow members of the body of Christ on the Hill in Washington, D.C., kicking off the National Day of Prayer. Wow, what a joy that was to be able to just continue to serve the Lord in that manner. So count me in with a smile on my face.
That's great, Colonel. Also, I think they have a job opening for the the Dallas area Cradle Roll Cadets.
They're going to need somebody to take over that program.
But only if, I'm about to get myself in trouble here. Only if the Trade Department approves the uniform with the Dallas Cowboy star on it.
Well, we've lost all our listeners. Jamie, what's giving you joy, Jamie?
So for me, it has to be the arrival of summer. Now, I will say for our Southern listeners, you'll be like, what are you talking about? We've been out of school for, at least a week now. Up here in the North-South, the northern version of the South, we're still in school. But this is the kids' last week of school, which means that summer is approaching. And with that comes all kinds of things that bring me joy. Farmers markets, being able to enjoy my kids a little bit during these summer days, all these kind of things. So I am, and the warm weather, I'm enjoying the sunshine, all the things that the approach of summer brings with it.
For me, it's going to be, I have rediscovered C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. I think we talked about this maybe the last time, but we found the audio CDs, the dramatized versions of those books on CDs. So when we've been on long road trips with the girls, we've just popped those CDs in, and man, it's just good stuff. Jeez, Aslan, the Jesus figure, the lion. I mean, C.S. Lewis just had a masterful way of just writing the perfect line that you're just like, every time we listen to it, I have to look out the window because I'm like, oh Lord, you just got me there. You got me.
You convicted me through a child's radio program.
Yeah. All right, Elizabeth, how about you? What's bringing you joy, Elizabeth?
Okay, so last week, BTS was here. And the fact that they were miles away and looking up the same sky is just so rad. It pumped me up.
They were
I'm
looking
still
at
reeling.
the same sky. Elizabeth, you know that they can see the same moon. They can see the same moon as us.
I know, but it's just different when they're this close.
Elizabeth, did you go hang out? They were at the White House, right? Did you go hang out outside the gates, see if you could see them?
I wanted to so bad, and I was so envious of those girls, but I did not.
Jamie, you're trying to entrap Elizabeth right now that she's in a stalker position of BTS.
No, I'm totally profesh, I promise.
Colonel, thank you so much for being on here. And again, every time we bring you on, you're the National Enquirer guest of the Salvation Army. You fill us in behind the scenes of what's going on. The TMZ Colonel.
Want to know.
That's right. Inquiring minds want to know. So
we could make that a regular little piece of the episode, just like our joy question, the behind the scenes with Colonel Johnson.
Got me in. I love it.
If you have not listened to Colonel Ken and Colonel Paula Johnson talk about the moves process, go and check that out. It's on the peermag.org website. Find that and listen to that. And if you're interested in how moves are made and what that looks like, that's one of our top rated episodes. People love to talk moves. I keep saying one of these days we're going to come on here and we're just going to guess the moves across the nation.
What if we could do like a live from
draft?
Behind the scenes? No, not a draft, but like in live from the move room.
Oh,
they'd kick us out real quick.
I don't think Commissioner's Conference would approve. That's going to end this episode of the Battle Line Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the Battle Line wherever you listen to podcasts and check out that website. We talked about it at peermag.org and follow Peer on all the socials at peer.magazine. Colonel, thanks for meeting with us. Until next time, this has been the Battle Line Podcast. Bye, everybody.
See you later.